All right, lesson number 16 is color grading. So if you are using one camera angle, all the way up to however many your heart desires, we're going to show you how to match the color in this video so that all the camera angles look the same. All right, extremely important if you care about aesthetics, like if you like how the podcast looks, you don't want one guy to look kind of green and another person to look kind of purple. The other reason this is important and valuable is if you're shooting off different cameras. So if you have a Canon and you have a Sony, or you're shooting off Sonys and they have different color profiles, or just it looks weird, this is going to be really important. I'm going to show you exactly how to, kind of match the color profiles for all the camera angles, or just make it look better overall. All right, so let's get into that now. All right, so we've gone over how to actually create the audio. Again, as you can see, we have our sample intro here, as well as the sample outro at the very end. I've moved that away from the subject of the video, and actually, you know what? We can just delete that for moving forward. So if you want to, again, rewatch that previous tutorial. It has a lot of information on actually how to just create your intro and outro for your podcast. But we want to focus on the primary aspect of this course right now, which is how to get views and how to maximize the amount of clips that we can produce and views that we can create from a single podcast episode. So the first video that we're focusing on this video is this full-length podcast. As you know, there's 4 camera angles, right? We've got camera angle 1 on top. If we hide that, we can see this one. If we hide that, we can see that one. And if we hide that, we can see this one. Now, before we export this and upload it to YouTube as our first video, we want to focus on color, all right? And you could just export it if you want to. This is not really going to lead to more views if the color is accurate. It's more focused, of course, on the content. But if you guys do want to look as good as possible, what I recommend doing is choosing a camera angle that looks the best. All right, so let's say that we want to match the color here to this camera angle. So the first thing we're going to look at is the background, kind of the black background, and maybe the skin tones. All right, so slightly purple, more purple than on the green, and a little tint of blue. All right, so we're going to hide that layer now, and we can see on this angle, we can compare those things. All right, we can compare the background. Is the background lighter or darker? All right, it looks darker in this, looks lighter in this. How about the skin tones? They look a little more green here than they do here. This is more blue and purple, and this is more green and orange, right? So what we would want to do then is we can hide this top layer. We can click on this clip here that's being previewed, and we can come up to Lumetri Color, right? And you guys should see Lumetri Color on your panel. If you don't, you can come up to Window as always, and just go ahead and make sure that Lumetri Color is selected. All right, so we wanted to make this a little more blue and a little more purple. So we wanted to make this a little more blue and a little more purple. So we're gonna go ahead and take the temperature dial, and we're gonna drag this into the blue. All right, I'm gonna go down about -6, -7, and I'm gonna take the purple and I'm gonna bring it up. Let's go to 3. All right. Now we can come back to this clip. Say still, we could increase the blues just a little bit. So let's go -9 here. All right. And then the background is lighter, right? It's much lighter than the black here. So what we can do to this clip is we can decrease the blacks a little bit. Okay, so we can go -2. The goal is we're trying to match all these camera angles to one another. Okay, so there we go. Let's move on to the next one because it's pretty close. All right, so here I'm going to go ahead and click on this clip, selecting it. If I click on it and highlight it, now any changes that I'm making are going to be changing this clip. So a common mistake is, you're looking at this clip because the 2 above it are highlighted, but you're actually selecting some other clip and you start making the changes and you're like, wait, I can't see anything that's changing. His color isn't changing. Well, make sure that you're selecting the right clip, okay? So selecting the right clip, we're going to decrease the blues just a little bit. We're going to increase the purples just a little bit. Again, like -5. Let's do, and this is just changing the white balance. Even though the cameras were set up the same, oftentimes the lenses will actually change the way that color comes through and gets recorded onto the SD card. So the cool thing is, once we do this once, we can apply it to all the other clips in the project, assuming that the lighting remains the same. And then we're going to do 3 there. All right, now let's look at the backgrounds. Let's look at the blacks. All right, that's much darker. And all right, so we want to maybe increase the contrast just a little bit. We can drop the blacks to make the black background a little bit more black, and the shadows. Okay, we're looking pretty good. You can see there, and we can compare there. Okay, it's still, this camera angle is still a little more purple, but that's okay for now. All right, just to give you guys a general idea, you can continue playing with this, and now we can try to match, the host's color here to here. This is definitely more green. We want to increase purples a little bit and maybe increase the oranges because it's definitely very blue. We can decrease the blacks just a little bit. It's pretty contrasted. And we can take a look. All right, again, we want to look for the background. Okay, we also want to look at the skin tones. We can look at his arm here, his upper arm, kind of see. Okay, we can maybe decrease the highlights just a little bit. Bring some of the color back into his face. And then let's go ahead and look at our female host. Okay, look at the skin tones. That is pretty good. And then go into this final camera angle. All right, and that looks great. Okay, so what we can do now is we've matched all the camera angles. Now we can actually apply a color over all of these different camera angles and fine tune how we want the aesthetic or how we want the look to actually be for all the camera angles. Okay, so just because we match them all to this first camera angle that's being displayed and shown now doesn't mean that's how we need and want the podcast to look. We're just matching all 3 to, the best one. Okay, so highlight this first clip. All the camera angles of this guest are on the very top. So what we can do is go ahead and click on that. And we want to come up to the effects control panel on the left-hand side of the screen and click the Lumetri color. We want to go ahead and press Control C, or we want to click on the Lumetri color, come up to edit, and copy that effect. If you don't see effects control panel, again, we're coming up to Windows and we're always looking for the effects control panel. All right, so once you copy that color, we want to zoom out and we can just highlight everything on this top row and press Control V, or come up to edit and press paste. And now if we skip ahead and we go ahead and click on any one of these clips, you'll see that Lumetri color has been applied to all of these clips on that top row. Okay, so you can simply copy and paste. And we're going to want to repeat that process for all these 3 layers. So I'm going to go ahead and hide this top layer. We've already done that, and you will see the next Lumetri color that we want to apply. So clicking on that clip that we're now viewing, I'm going to click on the Lumetri color, Control Copy, zoom all the way out, and I can go ahead and apply that on all of these clips. I can skip ahead again. I can click to highlight a section of that clip, and I can see that the Lumetri color has been applied onto that clip. If we zoom up, you'll also be able to see that there's a little green effects arrow here. So what that shows you is that there's 2 effects on this clip. We've changed the position a little bit, which I just did during editing if you had watched that in paid attention to that. And then we've added the Lumetri color, right? If we added another Lumetri color, you would see just by controlling and pasting that it's added again, but we just want to stick with the one. Okay. All right. We've got 2 more to go. So we've done the top 2 layers. Now we're going to focus on this next one. I'm going to click on that clip, and on the left-hand side of the screen, again, I can see all the effects that have been created and are currently on this clip. Highlighting the color, I'm going to copy that, edit copy, or Control C, and I'm going to select all the other clips on that layer and press Control V. You can see that has added the effects to all of them. Final one here, clicking and highlighting the wide camera angle, grabbing that color, and then we're going to apply that to all these clips. Boom. All right, I recommend that you kind of go through and you check your work. Sometimes, if you have the cameras set to auto white balance, the white balance could change and color can be a lot more difficult. But that is the general overview. If you get confused at any point, just go back and rewatch this video, follow along step by step. I am going fast out of respect to, all the people that this might be review for. Again, this is an advanced Premiere Pro course on just maximizing views from the podcast. So I'm going quick on this section. All right. Now it's important to notice that what we've done is I'm going to go ahead and select a random place in this clip. We have matched all the camera angles. So we got camera angle 4, camera angle 3, camera angle 2, and camera angle 1, right? Or the wide that we've referred to in this program. So what we can do now is we can come down and create an adjustment layer. So coming down to either, any of your bins that you've created, or we can navigate back to the project and click on this little paper new item button and select adjustment layer. It will automatically give us the sizes for the sequence that we've created. We can go ahead and press OK. And you'll see that adjustment layer has now popped up in, your bin or your project, and you can simply drag it and drop it over your timeline. Now, if you're zoomed out all the way in a large podcast, you probably won't see it, but we can go ahead and zoom in our timeline, and now we can just increase and stretch this adjustment layer out over our entire timeline and project. Now, the cool thing about adjustment layers, if you're not already familiar, is by changing any color or adding effects to this adjustment layer, it will add effects or color, whatever you're adding to, over anything underneath them. All right. So this is your chance if you want to, since all of these colors on these different 4 camera angles match, we can now change, the overall theme and color to all of these clips at once by adding an adjustment layer and changing the color of that adjustment layer. So, for example, I can come down to curves on this adjustment layer, which is where I like to start, and I can add a slight, S curve to this podcast. All right. That might be a little high, so I'm going to make it a little less. And that will kind of go across all of these different angles. Okay. I could also come to basic correction and add a little bit of exposure. I could add, 0.3 on the exposure dial. Any changes that I'm making, to this adjustment layer will change anything below it. If you want to get crazy and you want to add a filter, you can. I don't recommend it. I used to do it a lot when I first started out because I thought it looked cool, but really the more natural, the more organic you can make your podcast look, the better, right? But that's an example, of kind of like a much darker look to your podcast. All right. So we're going to stop things there. Get creative with trying to match your camera angle's color. You can add an adjustment layer once they're matched to kind of make everything look great.